The great crystal dome of the Galactic Council stretched across the sky like a frozen ocean. Inside its walls, beings from across the galaxy gathered in perfect rows. Their forms were strange and wonderful. Some floated like living clouds of light. Others stood tall as trees, their skin like polished stone. A few moved on many legs, clicking and humming as they spoke. Today they all shared the same worry: humanity. Ambassador Kethral of the Zephyrian Empire raised one of his forearms. Blue energy danced between his fingers as he spoke. Honored Council, we must discuss the humans again. Their war machines grow stronger each day. A wave of nervous sounds filled the chamber. The crystal beings called ethereals chimed like broken bells. The plant-like Verdani rustled their leaves in fear. Even the mighty Goliaths, who stood 3 times taller than any human, shifted uneasily on their massive feet. They are still young, said Elder Silara, her voice like wind through caves. She was one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, and her people had watched 1,000 worlds rise and fall. Their technology is basic, crude even. Crude, yes, Kethral agreed, but effective, in ways we do not understand. Look at these records. The air above the council filled with images. Human soldiers marched across battlefields. Their weapons were simple compared to alien energy guns and matter disruptors. But they worked. They worked very well. Dr. Veltar stood up from his seat. He was an Arcturian, a people known for their brilliant minds and peaceful ways. His large eyes could see in many colors that humans could not even imagine. His brain could solve problems that would take human computers hours to figure out. I have studied their weapons for many cycles, he said. They use explosions to throw small pieces of metal. Very simple, yet their armies defeat forces with much better technology. How is this possible? Asked Commander Thex, his scales changing color with confusion. His people, the Reptani, had fought wars for millions of years. They knew everything about battle, or so they thought. Dr. Veltar touched a control on his arm. New images appeared in the air. Human factories worked day and night, making weapons. Human soldiers trained with their guns until they could use them in their sleep. Human generals planned battles that covered entire worlds. They do not just make weapons, he said. They think about weapons in ways we have never seen. Watch this. The images showed a human battle. The alien army had better guns, faster ships, and stronger armor. But the humans won anyway. They used tricks and traps. They attacked when the enemy did not expect it. They turned the aliens' own strength against them. Impossible, whispered General Zareth, his metal body clicking as he moved. No primitive species should fight this well. That is the problem, said Dr. Veltar. We keep calling them primitive, but their military thinking is not primitive at all. It is different from ours, and we do not understand why it works so well. The council chamber fell quiet. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had seen young species before. Most followed the same path. First, they learned to make simple tools. Then they built cities. Then they reached for the stars. Finally, they joined the galactic community and learned civilized ways of living. But humans were different. They reached the stars while still fighting wars on their home planet. They built weapons that could destroy entire worlds, then kept building better ones. They seemed to love fighting more than anything else. Perhaps, said Elder Silara slowly, we should study them more closely, learn how they think about war. It might help us understand them better. Dr. Veltar's eyes grew bright with interest. Yes, a full research project. We could take apart their weapons, study their strategies, learn their secrets. With our advanced science, we could understand their methods in no time. Many heads nodded around the chamber. This made sense. The council races were much older and smarter than humans. They had technologies that humans could not dream of. Surely they could figure out how human weapons worked, then make better versions for themselves. But why would we want to? Asked Healer Mora An, her soft voice barely heard above the discussions. Her people, the empaths, felt the emotions of others. War and violence cause them great pain. Violence only brings suffering. Knowledge brings power, said Kethral. If we understand human weapons, we can defend against them. We can also use their ideas to make our own defenses stronger. And, added Dr. Veltar, we might learn something new. Humans approach problems in ways we never considered. Their solutions might work for other challenges too. The debate continued for hours. Some council members worried about studying weapons of war. Their peoples had moved beyond violence long ago. They solved problems with wisdom, not weapons. Why should they learn the ways of a species that still fought each other? But others saw opportunity. Human military technology was clearly effective. If they could understand it, improve it, and control it, they would be safer from any threats that might come from beyond their known galaxy. Finally, Elder Silara called for quiet. We will vote, she announced. All in favor of Dr. Veltar's research project? Lights appeared around the chamber as each member cast their vote. Blue for yes, red for no. When the counting finished, blue lights outnumbered red by a wide margin. The motion passes, Elder Silara declared. Dr. Veltar, you will lead a team to study human military technology. You have unlimited resources and the best scientists from every member world. Find out why human weapons work so well and learn how we can use their knowledge. Dr. Veltar bowed low. Honored Council, I will not fail you. Within one solar cycle, we will understand everything about human warfare. We will decode their secrets and make them our own. Around the chamber, beings nodded in approval. This was how problems got solved in the galaxy. Superior minds studied lesser ones, learned their tricks, and improved upon them. It had worked for thousands of years with hundreds of species. None of them noticed that Healer Moraon had not voted. She sat quietly in her seat, her usually calm face twisted with worry. Her gift let her feel emotions across vast distances. And when she reached out toward human space, she felt something that chilled her to her core. Hunger. Not for food or comfort, but for victory, for dominance, for the sweet taste of defeating an enemy who thought they were better. She tried to speak to warn the council, but the session had already ended. Dr. Veltar was already making plans, choosing his team, preparing for the great work ahead. As the council members filed out of the chamber, talking excitedly about the project, Healer Moraon remained in her seat. She closed her eyes and reached out again toward human space, hoping she had been wrong. But the feeling was stronger now. The humans knew the aliens were coming to study them. And they were waiting, and smiling. Dr. Veltar stood in the center of the most advanced research facility in the galaxy. The walls were made of living metal that could change shape and color. Machines floated through the air, carrying tools that could break down any material to its smallest parts. Scientists from 12 different worlds worked at stations that looked more like art than technology. On the table in front of him sat a human weapon. It looked simple, almost crude, a long metal tube with a handle and a trigger. Dr. Veltar had seen similar devices from primitive worlds across the galaxy. Most were toys compared to what advanced species could build. This is what they call an assault rifle, he said to his team. It uses chemical explosions to push small pieces of metal very fast. Dr. Jian, a Zephyrian energy specialist, laughed. Her body glowed brighter as she found the concept amusing. Chemical explosions? We moved beyond such things millions of years ago. Our weapons use pure energy controlled by thought alone. And our weapons reshape matter itself, added Research Master Quillith, his crystal body ringing like a bell as he spoke. We can turn an enemy's armor into gas or change their weapons into flowers. Why do humans still throw metal pieces at each other? Dr. Veltar activated the scanning beam. Light played over the rifle, breaking it down into its basic parts. Numbers and diagrams filled the air around them. The weapon's design appeared in perfect detail. Look at this, he said, studying the data. The parts are made from common metals, nothing rare or expensive. The manufacturing process is simple, enough that their factories can make thousands of these in a single day. Primitive mass production, said Dr. Jian. Quantity over quality. This is what we expected. But as they studied the weapon deeper, strange details began to appear. The metal was not just common, it was chosen carefully. Each part was designed to work even when dirty, wet, or damaged. The weapon could function in heat that would melt most alien technology, or cold that would shatter their finest crystals. "Wait," said Dr. Veltar, his voice uncertain. "Look at this trigger mechanism. It seems simple, but watch what happens when we simulate battle conditions." The computer showed the rifle being dropped in mud, buried in sand, and soaked in water. Each time it still worked. Other simulations showed it being used by soldiers who were tired, scared, and injured. It still worked. Research Master Quilleth's crystal body dimmed. "Our weapons require perfect conditions to function properly. Clean energy sources, stable temperatures, calm operators. This human device works when everything goes wrong." "That is not the strangest part," said Dr. Veltar. He pointed to another section of data. "Look at the damage it causes. The bullets are designed to tumble when they hit a target. They create wounds that are very difficult to heal." The team fell silent. Advanced civilizations had weapons that killed quickly and cleanly, energy beams that shut down nervous systems instantly, matter converters that simply made enemies disappear. These weapons were designed to end conflicts with minimal suffering. Human weapons were different. They were designed to cause maximum trauma and fear. The sound of the gunfire was loud and frightening. The wounds were terrible to see. Even if a soldier survived being shot, they would remember the pain forever. "This is psychological warfare," whispered Dr. Jayan. "They are not just trying to stop their enemies, they are trying to break their minds." Over the following days, the team studied more human weapons: grenades that sprayed sharp metal pieces in all directions, bombs that created walls of fire, chemical weapons that caused slow, painful death. Each one was designed not just to kill but to terrorize. "I do not understand," said Research Master Quilleth. "Why make weapons that cause suffering? Dead is dead. Why does the method matter?" Dr. Veltar found the answer in human military documents they had captured. He read them aloud to his team, his voice growing quieter with each sentence. "The purpose of military weapons is not just to eliminate enemy forces," he read. "It is to destroy the enemy's will to fight. A weapon that kills one soldier but frightens 10 others is more effective than a weapon that kills 2 soldiers cleanly." The research facility seemed colder after those words. The team had always thought of war as a problem to be solved. Deploy superior technology, achieve quick victory, minimize losses. But humans saw war as a battle of minds as much as bodies. Dr. Jayan began to flicker, her energy patterns becoming unstable. "They fight wars to win wars," she said, "not to solve problems or defend territory, to win. But winning should be simple," said Research Master Quilleth. "Superior technology defeats inferior technology. Advanced minds defeat primitive ones. This is how the universe works." Dr. Veltar pulled up more data. Human battle records going back thousands of years. Again and again, they showed human forces defeating enemies with better weapons, more soldiers, and superior positions. How was this possible? "Look at this battle," he said, highlighting one example. Humans with primitive projectile weapons defeated an alien force with energy shields and plasma cannons. The aliens should have won easily. The team studied the battle records. The alien commander had planned a standard assault: advance with shields up, eliminate human defensive positions with superior firepower, accept surrender. It was a strategy that had worked on hundreds of worlds. But the humans did not fight a standard battle. They used tricks, traps, and deceptions. They attacked from unexpected directions. They turned the aliens' confidence against them. Most importantly, they fought with a desperation that the aliens could not understand. "The humans knew they should lose," said Dr. Veltar slowly. "Their weapons were weaker. Their numbers were smaller. Their position was hopeless, but they fought anyway." "Fighting hopeless battles is illogical," said Research Master Quilleth. "Civilized beings surrender when defeat is certain. It prevents unnecessary suffering." "Unless," said Dr. Jayan, her voice barely a whisper, Suffering is the point. The team worked in silence after that. Each weapon they studied revealed new layers of human thinking that disturbed them. Weapons designed to work in any condition. Tactics that assumed the enemy would be stronger and smarter. Strategies that planned for failure and turned it into victory. By the end of the first month, Dr. Veltar noticed changes in his team. Dr. Jayan's energy patterns had become erratic. She jumped at unexpected sounds and had trouble maintaining her usual bright glow. Research Master Quillith had developed stress fractures in his crystal body. Even the support staff seemed nervous and withdrawn. Perhaps we should take a break from this research, suggested Dr. Yun Ara, the team's medical officer. Her people were skilled healers who could sense illness in others. I am detecting signs of psychological stress in the entire team. We cannot stop now, said Dr. Veltar. We have barely begun to understand their weapons. The Council expects results. But that night, alone in his quarters, Dr. Veltar found himself checking the locks on his doors. He had never worried about security before. The research facility was protected by the most advanced defenses in the galaxy. Nothing could threaten them here. So why did he feel like something was watching him? Something patient and dangerous, waiting for the right moment to strike? He told himself it was just stress from working with alien technology. Tomorrow would be better. They would continue their research and find rational explanations for everything they had discovered. But as he tried to sleep, one thought kept returning to his mind. Human weapons were not just tools. They were statements, messages sent to anyone who would listen. And the message was simple. We know you think you are better than us. We know you think your technology makes you safe. We are going to prove you wrong. The research facility had changed. Where once it hummed with excited conversation and discovery, now only quiet whispers filled the halls. Dr. Veltar's team worked in small groups, avoiding eye contact, speaking in hushed tones about things that should not be discussed in civilized company. In the main laboratory, a human tank sat under bright lights. It was a massive thing covered in thick armor and bristling with weapons. To alien eyes, it looked crude and simple, just metal plates welded together around an engine. But after weeks of study, Dr. Veltar knew better. The armor is not just protection, he explained to his assembled team. His voice had lost its earlier enthusiasm. Now he spoke like someone describing a disease. It is designed to be repaired in the field using basic tools. The engine can run on almost any flammable liquid. The main gun can fire dozens of different ammunition types. Dr. Jayan stood nearby, her energy form barely visible. She had been growing dimmer each day as the research continued. Show them the psychological elements, she said quietly. Dr. Veltar nodded and activated another display. The tank appeared in hologram form, but now they could see its effect on enemy forces. The deep rumble of its engine, the way it crushed obstacles instead of going around them, the fear it caused just by existing on a battlefield. Human armor is not just meant to fight, he said. It is meant to terrify. They could build quieter engines, but they choose loud ones. They could design sleek, elegant shapes, but they choose brutal, aggressive ones. Everything about this machine is designed to break enemy morale. Research Master Quillith had not spoken in days. His crystal body was covered in stress fractures that spread a little further each time he studied human technology. When he finally spoke, his voice rang like breaking glass. I have analyzed their military doctrine, he said, calling up new data displays. They have something they call acceptable losses. It means they plan for their own soldiers to die. The room fell, silent. In galactic civilization, the loss of even a single life was considered a failure of planning. Wars were fought with precision to minimize casualties. Advanced technology existed specifically to protect soldiers and end conflicts quickly. They planned to lose people, Dr. Jayan whispered. On purpose. Worse than that, said Research Master Quillith. They have calculations for how many deaths are worth different objectives. They assign numerical values to their own people's lives. Dr. Veltar felt something cold settle in his stomach. Show us. The hologram displayed human military manuals. Charts and graphs filled with numbers that made no sense to alien minds. Battle plans that assumed certain percentages of forces would be destroyed. Training programs that prepared soldiers to die for abstract concepts like honor and duty. "Look at this," said Research Master Quilleith, highlighting a particular document. "They call it mutually assured destruction. If an enemy attacks them with planet-killing weapons, they will respond by destroying not just the enemy's world but their entire civilization." "That is madness," breathed Dr. Yunara, the medical officer. "Both sides would be destroyed. No one wins." "That is the point," said Dr. Veltar grimly. "They would rather die than lose. And they want their enemies to know this. It is the ultimate deterrent." The team studied more documents. Human military theory that spoke of total war. The idea that in serious conflicts everything was a target. Not just armies and military bases, but factories, farms, and civilian populations. The concept of making war so terrible that the enemy would surrender rather than continue fighting. Dr. Jean suddenly flickered and nearly went out. I cannot process this. They fight wars by threatening to destroy everything, including themselves." "It gets worse," said Research Master Quilleith. His voice had become a harsh whisper. "They have something called scorched earth tactics. If they cannot hold territory, they destroy it completely. They make sure their enemies gain nothing from victory." The research continued for weeks. Each day brought new horrors. Human weapons that poisoned land for generations. Strategies that turned civilian populations into weapons. Plans for wars that could last centuries. But the worst discovery came when they began studying human military vehicles in detail. Dr. Veltar was examining a human spacecraft when he noticed something that made his blood freeze. "This ship," he said slowly, "is not just a transport or a fighter. Look at these modifications." The hologram showed the ship's internal structure. Hidden compartments filled with explosives. Systems designed to overload the reactor. Programming that could turn the entire vessel into a guided missile. "They build self-destruct systems into everything," whispered Dr. Jayan. "Every ship, every vehicle, every piece of equipment can be turned into a bomb." "But why?" asked Dr. Yunara. "What is the purpose?" Dr. Veltar found the answer in human training manuals. They call it denial of assets. If they cannot win, they make sure the enemy gains nothing from defeating them. Every human military unit is trained to destroy their own equipment, rather than let it be captured. Research Master Quilleith made a sound like crystal screaming. "They fight wars they plan to lose. They build weapons they plan to destroy. They train soldiers they expect to die. What kind of minds think this way?" The medical officer began, running scans on the research team. What she found alarmed her. Stress hormones at dangerous levels. Brain patterns showing signs of trauma. Sleep disorders affecting everyone on the project. "We need to stop this research," she told Dr. Veltar privately. "The team is showing signs of psychological damage. Studying human warfare is making them sick." "We cannot stop," he replied, though his own voice shook. "The council expects results. We must understand how they think." But understanding was becoming a curse. The more they learned about human military doctrine, the more they realized that humans did not just prepare for wars they were fighting, they prepared for wars that might never happen, against enemies that might not exist. Dr. Veltar found plans for underwater cities that could survive planet-wide floods. Space habitats designed to function after the destruction of their home world. Weapons caches hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for conflicts that might not occur for thousands of years. "They do not just plan for war," he said during one team meeting. "They plan for the end of everything, and they plan to survive it." The research facility's computer systems began showing strange glitches. Equipment would activate without commands. Security systems would report intruders that were not there. Dr. Yunara suggested that the stress was causing the team to make mistakes, but Dr. Veltar was beginning to suspect something else. The more they studied human warfare, the more they began to think like humans, and thinking like humans was changing them in ways they did not understand. Late one night, Alone in his office, Dr. Veltar found himself drawing battle plans. Not alien battle plans with their emphasis on precision and minimal casualties. Human battle plans. Brutal, direct, effective. Plans that assumed the enemy would be stronger and smarter, so they prepared for the worst possible scenario. He threw the drawings away, but found himself making new ones the next day, and the day after. That the human way of thinking about conflict was like a virus, spreading through his mind despite all his efforts to resist it. The worst part was that the plans were good, better than anything his own people had ever developed. Human military thinking was not just brutal and terrifying, it was effective. And that realization scared him more than anything else they had discovered. The breakthrough came by accident. Dr. Veltar was trying to decode a damaged human data storage device when something went wrong with the translation system. Instead of individual files, the entire contents of the device appeared at once. What he saw made him forget to breathe. It was not just data, it was a map. A vast interconnected web of plans and strategies that stretched across time and space. Every human weapon they had studied, every vehicle, every tactic, they were all connected. All part of something much larger and more terrifying than they had imagined. Team meeting, he called over the facility's communication system. His voice was shaking. Emergency, come to the main lab immediately. Within minutes, the research team had assembled. They looked terrible. Dr. Jehan was so dim she was barely visible. Research Master Quillith's crystal body was more crack than solid material. The others showed signs of stress that would have sent them to medical facilities under normal circumstances. But these were not normal circumstances. Look at this, Dr. Veltar said, activating the main display. The web of human strategic planning filled the air above them. Lines connected weapons to tactics, tactics to strategies, strategies to long-term plans that spanned centuries. I do not understand, whispered Dr. Yunara. What is this? Human military planning, said Dr. Veltar. Not just for current wars, for all possible wars. Look here. He highlighted a section of the web. Plans for fighting opponents who could control minds, strategies for battles against enemies who could move through time, weapons designed to work against foes who could manipulate reality itself. They are planning to fight us, said Research Master Quillith, his voice like wind through broken stone. All of us. Every species in the galaxy. Not planning, corrected Dr. Veltar. Already planned. These documents are hundreds of years old. They developed countermeasures for our technologies before they even knew we existed. The team stared at the display in horrified fascination. Human strategists had somehow predicted the abilities of species they had never met. Energy manipulation, matter transformation, telepathic communication. For every alien power, there was a human plan to counter it. How is this possible? Asked Dr. Jayan. They barely have faster-than-light travel. They have never been beyond their local star cluster. How could they know what we can do? Dr. Veltar pulled up more files. They study their own fiction, stories about imaginary aliens with various powers. Then they develop real strategies to fight those imaginary enemies. Fiction? Research Master Quillith sounded confused. They plan wars against beings that do not exist? And then, said Dr. Veltar grimly, when they meet real aliens with similar abilities, they already know how to fight them. The implications were staggering. Humans did not just prepare for likely threats. They prepared for every possible threat they could imagine, and their imaginations were vast and dark and creative. Dr. Veltar opened another file. Plans for fighting wars in space, underwater, underground, and in the depths of gas giant atmospheres. Strategies for battles on worlds with crushing gravity, toxic air, and deadly radiation. Tactics for combat in situations no sane species would ever encounter. They assume the universe is trying to kill them, he said quietly. So they prepare for everything. But the worst was yet to come. As Dr. Veltar dug deeper into the files, he found something that made his hands tremble. A section labeled Contingency. Plans. Species integration. What does that mean? Asked Dr. Yunara. Dr. Veltar opened the file and immediately wished he had not. Inside were detailed plans for what humans called cultural warfare, strategies for defeating enemies not through violence but by changing how they thought. They study alien psychology, he read aloud. They identify what each species values most. Then they create situations that force aliens to choose between their values and their survival. The file contained profiles of major galactic civilizations. The Zephyrians with their pride in energy mastery, the Ethereals with their belief in crystalline perfection, the Verdani with their connection to living worlds. For each species, humans had developed plans to corrupt, confuse, or convert them, not through force, but through ideas. By introducing concepts that would slowly poison alien cultures from within. Look at this section about us, said Research Master Quillith. They call it the study trap. Dr. Veltar read the human strategy with growing horror. They know that advanced species will want to study them, so they design their technology to be studied. But studying it changes the researcher, makes them think more like humans. That is what is happening to us, whispered Dr. Jayan. Right, now, we are becoming more like them. The realization hit the team like a physical blow. Every day they spent studying human warfare, they absorbed more of the human mindset. The paranoia, the aggression, the assumption that conflict was inevitable. It was all seeping into their thoughts. Dr. Veltar found more files, plans for economic warfare that would destroy alien civilizations without firing a shot. Strategies for psychological operations that could drive entire species to madness. Ideas for weapons that attacked the very concepts of peace and cooperation. They do not just want to win wars, he said, his voice hollow. They want to remake the universe in their image, turn every species into a version of themselves. The most chilling discovery came in a file marked Ultimate Contingency. It contained plans for what humans would do if they ever faced complete extinction, not surrender, not negotiate, but ensure that they took the entire galaxy with them. Weaponized black holes, Dr. Veltar read. Reality bombs that unravel the fabric of space itself. Virus weapons that target the basic chemistry of life. They would destroy everything, said Dr. Yunara in shock. Every world, every species, every trace of civilization. Rather than lose, confirmed Dr. Veltar. They call it the Samson option. If they cannot have the galaxy, no one can. The research facility fell silent except for the hum of machinery. The team sat in the presence of plans so vast and terrible that their minds struggled to process them. This was not just military strategy. It was a blueprint for the transformation or destruction of galactic civilization. Research Master Quillith made a sound like an entire crystal forest shattering. We cannot continue this research. Every moment we spend studying them makes us more like them. Soon we will be planning wars against our own people. But we must report to the Council, said Dr. Veltar. They need to know what humans are capable of. Do they? Asked Dr. Jayan. Or will knowing destroy them too? Dr. Veltar looked at his team. These were some of the most brilliant minds in the galaxy, scientists who had unlocked the secrets of space and time, researchers who had brought peace to 1,000 worlds. Now they cowered in the presence of human strategic thinking like primitive beings afraid of lightning. The knowledge they had gained was poison in their minds, changing them in ways they could not control or reverse. We have one choice, he said finally. We must warn the Council, but we must also quarantine ourselves. This knowledge is too dangerous to spread. As the team began preparing their final report, Dr. Veltar found himself thinking like a human strategist. If he were humanity facing a galaxy of advanced aliens, what would he do? The answer came to him immediately, and it terrified him. He would make sure the aliens studied his technology. He would make the act of understanding him into a weapon against them. And somewhere in human space, he was certain, strategists were smiling as their plan worked exactly as intended. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. Dr. Veltar stood in the center, but he barely looked like the confident scientist who had left months earlier. His skin had lost its healthy glow. His large eyes darted constantly around the room, as if expecting attack from any direction. When he spoke, his voice carried an edge that made even the bravest council members uncomfortable. "Honored Council," he began, "I must report that our mission has failed. Not because we could not understand human military technology, but because understanding it was exactly what they wanted us to do." A wave of confused murmurs filled the chamber. Elder Silara raised one ancient hand for silence. "Explain yourself, Doctor." Dr. Veltar activated his presentation system with shaking fingers, but instead of the detailed technical analysis, the council expected only a single message appeared in the air above them. "Discontinue all research immediately. Quarantine all materials. Classify as cognitohazard." "This is all?" asked Kethral, his blue energy flickering with annoyance. "Months of work, unlimited resources, the best minds in the galaxy, and you give us 6 words? Those 6 words may save our civilization," Dr. Veltar replied. "Everything else we learned is too dangerous to share." Commander Thex's scales shifted to aggressive red patterns. "Impossible. We have studied thousands of primitive species. Their technology always yields useful knowledge." "Humans are not primitive," said Dr. Veltar flatly. "That was our first mistake. They are not advanced in the ways we measure advancement, but their understanding of warfare surpasses anything in the galaxy. One species cannot be better at war than all others combined," said General Zareth, his metal body clanking as he stood up. "I have commanded fleets for millennia. I know warfare." Dr. Veltar looked at the general with something that might have been pity. "You know civilized warfare, General. Warfare between rational beings who fight for logical reasons. Humans practice something else entirely." The chamber fell quiet. Dr. Veltar took a deep breath and began the most important speech of his life. "Human weapons are not just tools," he said. "They are ideas made physical. Each gun, each bomb, each military vehicle carries within it a way of thinking about conflict that is alien to us." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "They design their technology to be studied. They know that advanced species like ourselves will capture their equipment and try to understand it. The process of studying human warfare changes the researcher, makes them think like humans." "Preposterous," declared Elder Silara. "Knowledge is knowledge. It cannot alter the fundamental nature of a mind." "Can it not?" Dr. Veltar asked quietly. "Honored Elder, in your ancient wisdom, have you ever planned a battle where you expected most of your own forces to die? Of course not. Such planning would be madness." "I have," said Dr. Veltar. "Just last night, I found myself designing strategies that accepted massive casualties in exchange for tactical advantage. I, who have never experienced violence in my entire life, was planning wars of extinction." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Such thoughts were impossible for civilized beings. Violence was a tool of last resort, used only when all other options had failed. "The research team is contaminated," Dr. Veltar continued when the noise died down. "Dr. Jayan can no longer maintain stable energy patterns. She sees enemies everywhere. Research Master Quillith has suffered complete crystalline fracture. His people are trying to rebuild his mind, but the damage may be permanent." Healer Mora'an, who had remained silent throughout the session, finally spoke. "I tried to warn you," she said softly. "I felt something wrong in human space. A hunger that our minds cannot process safely." "What kind of hunger?" asked Elder Silara. "The hunger to win," replied Healer Mora'an. "Not to survive, not to defend, not to achieve goals. Simply to win, to prove superiority over any opponent, no matter the cost." Dr. Veltar nodded grimly. "Human military doctrine assumes that any conflict might become total war. They prepare not just to defeat enemies, but to completely destroy them. Their strategies account for the possibility that they themselves might be annihilated, and they consider this acceptable if they can take their foes with them. But why? asked Kethrel. What purpose does such thinking serve? Deterrence, said Dr. Veltar. If your enemies know you will fight to the death, they become less likely to fight you at all. Human military power comes not just from their weapons, but from their willingness to use them in ways that terrify rational minds. The discussion continued for hours. Council members struggled to understand how a single species could pose such a threat to galactic civilization. Their weapons were primitive, their technology was crude, their worlds were few and poorly defended. But their ideas were poison. We must quarantine them, said Elder Silara finally. Establish a perimeter around human space. No contact, no trade, no communication. It may already be too late, warned Dr. Veltar. Human strategic thinking is designed to spread. Every species that studies them becomes infected with their mindset. Within a few generations, the entire galaxy could be thinking like them. What would that mean? Asked Commander Thex. Dr. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. War, he said simply. Constant, total, unending war. Every species fighting every other species for reasons that make sense only to human logic. The vote was unanimous. Human space was declared a quarantine zone. No ships were to approach their worlds. No communication was to be attempted. The very existence of humanity was classified at the highest levels of galactic security. But privately, many council members wondered if the measure was already too late. Reports were coming in from the border systems, military commanders asking for more aggressive defense strategies, scientists developing weapons that seemed unnecessarily brutal, politicians talking about acceptable losses in ways that chilled their advisors. The human way of thinking was spreading, passed along in casual conversations, academic papers, and strategic briefings, like a virus that attacked the very concept of peaceful civilization. Dr. Veltar left the council chamber and returned to a secure medical facility. His final report would never be read by anyone, it was too dangerous. Instead, it joined the sealed files of the most hazardous discoveries in galactic history. In his private room, Dr. Veltar tried to meditate in the way of his people, to find peace through contemplation of the universe's beauty and order. But his thoughts kept returning to human battle plans, strategies that assumed the worst of everyone and prepared accordingly. The humans had won, he realized, not through conquest or technology, but through the simple act of being studied. They had turned their greatest weakness, the curiosity of advanced civilizations, into their ultimate weapon. And somewhere in the depths of human space, military planners were probably smiling. Phase 1 of their strategy was complete. The aliens knew to fear them now, but they did not yet realize that fear was just another weapon in humanity's vast arsenal. Dr. Veltar tried to sleep, but could not shake the feeling that he was being watched. Not by hidden cameras or spying devices, but by human minds that had planned for this exact moment. Minds that understood that the greatest victory was not defeating your enemies, but making them defeat themselves. In the weeks that followed, similar facilities across the galaxy were quietly closed. Research projects abandoned. Scientists transferred to safer fields of study. The official reason was always budget cuts or changing priorities. But those who knew the truth understood. Humanity had become the galaxy's first cognitohazard. Species too dangerous to study, too alien to understand, and too clever to ignore. And in the silence of quarantined space, human civilization continued to grow and plan and prepare for the day when the barriers would fall. Because that was what humans did. They planned for every possibility, even the ones that should have been impossible, especially those